Welcome to How to Decorate from Ballard Designs, a weekly podcast all about the trials and triumphs of decorating and redecorating your home. I'm Caroline. I'm on the marketing team.
And I'm Taryn, and I'm a product designer.
I'm Liz. I head up the creative team.
We're your hosts. Join the expert team at Ballard Designs for tips, tricks, and tales from interior designers, stylists, and other talents in the design world.
Plus, we'll answer your decorating dilemmas at the end of each episode.
We love answering your questions, so don't forget to email us at podcast@ballarddesigns.net.
Now, on with the show.
Every who down in Who Newville liked the holidays a ton. But where to get great prices on gifts, they had no idea. None. They searched and they searched for great gifts under $25. Gifts for spouses and friends and even their toddlers. When suddenly one who shouted, Walmart has what you want, knowing they have Lego, Tree Hut, and no prices to flaunt. So they enjoy the holiday season as who's often do. Cheering and shouting, Walmart has incredible gifts. Who knew? Find gifts they'll love under $25 at Walmart.
Our guest today is Chicago-based interior designer Claire Staszak. Her client projects highlight her love of historic architecture, enhancing traditional design elements, and infusing new spaces with soul. Her work has been featured in Architectural Digest, House Beautiful, the Chicago Tribune, HGTV, and Lux Magazine. And 2 years ago, she bought her dream home, which she's about to renovate from top to bottom. Claire, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Nice to be with you.
So we have a lot to get to today. We wanted to talk about your renovation because, as I mentioned in the introduction, you kind of specialize in historic preservation and architecture and really sort of enhancing that in your projects. You launched your design business 10 years ago, and since then, that's really sort of been where your specialty is, taking the traditional design elements in your client projects, but then you also incorporate fabrics and furnishings that have a little bit of a modern feel to them. So the two come together in a really unique style, and it's something that your clients seek you out for. So I was curious if you could kind of start there and where that aesthetic came from and kind of whether it was there from the beginning. Is it something that sort of evolved over time, or really sort of where that like unique combination came from?
Yeah. So, I can't believe it's been 10 years. It's like so weird to hear that officially said. It's just time is really flying. I don't think I necessarily started out with a really clear vision of like exactly what my firm was going to do. I started out like many entrepreneurs, just kind of on my own. I had a few great internships, but I actually went back to design school when I was 29. And so really, I've been doing this for like my 30s. And I didn't train under someone. I had some great internships at a couple really good places as, in my late 20s. But I say that because I think a lot of people develop their style often, either who they were trained under, part of that kind of translates, or like they go the opposite direction. It's not what they wanted to do. But I really think in the beginning, I obviously had a personal sense of style and aesthetic, and I've always loved old homes and old things, but I really catered to whatever the client wanted. And it definitely took some time. And I also think it took hiring a few different people and sort of melding with their aesthetics and trying different things on to really get to the place where I felt really comfortable with, what, this is sort of what I think we do best, and we're really going to lean into that. And, I think it's still a thing in business, but, everyone's always like, oh, niche down, create a niche. Like people love to use that word. And I think when you're starting out, you feel like, oh, well, I need to really appeal to everyone. I don't want to limit myself. But I have found I first sort of started to niche into kitchen design specifically because we do a lot of kitchens, and I love cabinetry in general, kitchen design. And then that sort of really morphed into, what we really want to, like the projects I want to be doing are in historic properties, and they are people who really care about architecture, and they are people who love mixing old and new. And so it kind of evolved, over time out of that. And I think having the confidence to say, I'm good with like only this type of client, and those are the people who I really want to find me.
Yeah, I loved seeing that element in your portfolio. It was almost like the shell of many of your projects have this very traditional, timeless, moldings and cabinetry, like you mentioned. But then there were always, furniture shapes or lighting, things within the room that had a real sleekness to it. But then also your color palettes had have this real warmth and almost like an aged color palette. So there was this kind of mixture that like it felt very nostalgic almost, but also really clean. So that it was kind of
It's so fun to hear someone talk about it. I love it. I love all the things you're noticing. Like, that's so great to hear.
How would you describe your style?
This is the
I know.
the hard question. It's like, I feel like I have some friends who are so good and they're like, oh, I'm granny chic, or I'm, traditional coastal. I mean, I would say we are always trying to balance masculine and feminine, and we're always, I love spaces to feel ethereal. Look, I have some buzzwords, but I find it really hard to put in a category. I mean, I think if we're going to put it in a category, I'd call it new traditional, where, it's always going to harken back to traditional shapes and antiques, and we use architecture to guide the style of the home. But we are definitely not afraid, to mix or to, I don't like to say try a trend, but, do something that isn't quote unquote perfectly buttoned up traditional. And so, yeah, I think new traditional is probably a good sort of place for us.
Because like Caroline said, you do have a lot of wonderful deep colors in a lot of your work that really, speak to a depth kind of that old home traditional, which I was wondering if it really is the style of homes too. Do you find a certain age you've of home you're always working on?
So that's a great question, because I think I actually have a book coming out in a couple of years, and there was a lot of debate on. I really wanted to just have the book be old homes, only old homes. But of course we work on new homes. And I don't want to say that if you have a new home,
don't call me.
You're not a good person. And some of our best clients do have, what you see on the portfolio, those are not all old homes. Some of them are new homes. And so the editors kind of convinced me that it really needed to be right. It needed to be showing how we work on the old homes, but then also how you can bring that to a new home. And so while I think the biggest influence is really that in the Chicagoland area, and I live up on the North Shore near the lake, I mean, we're just very lucky that there's just a lot of beautiful old homes. And there's a lot of people who really don't have a choice. They kind of have to buy an old home. And so there's just a lot of material to work with. I think I have a friend who's a designer in Oklahoma, and there's just tons of new construction. There's no old homes in the area that she's working. And so I just feel very fortunate to be able to lean into that. And I'm sort of in the sect of people who are fighting against all the modern white farmhouses that are going up on every street, because it's just, I want to see that character in my neighborhood. And I don't really care what year your house is. I just, don't want it to be kind of builder basic.
Yeah, I'm curious, in your projects that are more historic properties, and then versus your clients who are building or in a new home, the last 10 years or something, are you approaching them completely differently in terms of the types of pieces you're bringing in and or cabinetry you're bringing in, or are you sort of creating the same shell regardless of the house?
I think every shell is different, but no, I'd say it's sort of two different approaches. I think, one approach is much more restore, what can we pull from this original that still works or that we can improve upon, and then build a color story and things that maybe lend itself more to, for instance, if we're doing a Tudor, I think there's just sort of a tutor inherently is probably going to be a little more moody and a little, they're darker. And so that's like kind of a little more the approach, like let the house guide you.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with the new builds or the new construction, I find unless you're working with an exceptional architect who's already done all this work for you, you're really trying to show the client what elements they can bring in, either architecturally, if those decisions haven't been made yet, or if those decisions have been made, sometimes it's adding crown molding, it's changing a fireplace so it's more fitting of what they want the home to actually be like era-wise, if its sort of era is a bit confused. And it's also working harder on the furnishings and the paint and all those things because they're not necessarily always enhancing the architecture. They're sort of trying to, stand in place of it sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Can we get into your house and how, okay, you bought it a couple of years ago and you've been planning a renovation. Have you started the renovation yet?
So fingers crossed, I am waiting any day now on my permit to be approved.
Oh, nice.
So it's been through a couple rounds in the village. I think we are nearly there. So yeah, I have rented the apartment above this. So I'm in one of my design studios right now on the North Shore. We have a city location, but I will also now be working here and living here. Renovate this house. But yes, timing, like everyone's project, is very long.
Yeah.
And we hope to be started. I am hoping no later than October 1st, we are knocking.
You're in there. Yeah. Set us up. What is the house? What were you looking for when you were house shopping? And what were sort of the pros and cons of the house and why you ultimately picked this?
Yeah. So, I mean, the market's tough here. So you don't have just pick of anything, that's for sure. But I think we were very lucky. I was looking for something that was big enough that it could be a forever home. I have 2 kids and I really wanted, what I felt was this space that we needed. I think my house before was probably just under 3,000 square feet. This house is 5,500 square feet. So, it's a nice size house for a family of 4. It has a little bit of a larger lot, but I was really, looking for just that character, that architectural detail that I love. This house is a Mediterranean, built in 1926. Unfortunately, it doesn't have its original tile roof, which is very sad. But other than that, it definitely has been stripped of a lot of its original details throughout the years. I think what remained was basically, to, again, the best of my knowledge, I think that the staircase is original. And one thing that was really important to me is I love an entry moment. So I really wanted that kind of staircase coming down, formal entry, kids lined up for prom pictures, that kind of thing. Makes me really. So, and it has a formal living room, a formal dining room, and a nice giant family room. So I think it had sort of all those elements. And at one time, it had been renovated really well. So that's also what I look for. If the house has been renovated, and or I guess more, should I say, an addition? Because a lot of times people buy a house and they say, okay, I'm going to put an addition on, which is, a lot easier to say. And I knew that this house had already had a very decent addition. It wasn't our style, it wasn't the right era, but the square footage was there. And so I knew I could change anything on the inside to make it what I wanted. And so it sort of checked all those boxes for us. It was in one of the suburbs that was, in our checked box. And then it had original doorknobs, original doors, original staircase, and I could just really see the potential. And the exterior was pretty charming, but falling apart slightly.
I mean, 100-year-old house is, gonna
Some's
have
falling apart.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And I mean, of course, like part of, I think you definitely have to put in the love, the time, the energy, the money. But I definitely think we got a great deal because a lot of other people don't want to do that, so it's a benefit, I think, of, doing this work.
Right. And you've done a lot of projects, so you're a pro versus, the average home buyer.
Yes.
Okay, so you've been there a couple years now. You've been living there a couple years now, waiting for the reno. But was there anything that you did prior to moving in as just sort of like a, bare bones, we got to do this first? Or what, did y'all just move in?
Yeah. I repainted, like, I didn't want to repaint the whole house because I knew so much of it was going to be demolished. But like, I repainted all the bedrooms. Anywhere there was carpet, we put new carpet. So like the primary is carpet. The current family room has carpet. We'll be changing that to hardwood floors. But and the basement we sort of fixed up for our kids. But pretty basic. I just moved the furniture we already had, swapped out some lights. I mean, I took down any old lighting that they had left and switched it with things that were ours. But I'm kind of if you're going to do it right person. So I just made it livable. I mean, I put up some window treatments, in just places that we needed them. And I've just kind of been grinning and bearing it through till I get the dream.
Yeah. Okay. This is something that I really struggle with. How did you stay patient throughout the last couple of years while you're waiting and planning? You know what I mean? Like, were there ever times where you're like, I just really wish I could do this now, but I'm not going to?
Yes, for sure. I mean, one thing I'll say about being a busy business owner and mom is like, don't have much time to, be thinking about, I honestly, it's one of those things that I kind of always get a little annoyed. Like, it's so cliche when designers are like, oh, there's some whatever, I don't even know the line about the cobbler shoes, kind of thing. But truly, I have not had a nightstand for 2 years. Like, I've been using a chair. And it's a problem, but like, I don't even care because to me, like, the end goal is so much bigger than like buying myself a nightstand that I don't like because it's not the one that I really want. Or like, I don't want to design it, till I know really what I want it to be. And I think when you use your creativity every day, like it is hard to do your own home when you're a designer and you're doing this all day long. Like, I do love it, but there are plenty of times where I come home and I don't want to think about my bedroom. And, so I guess I would just say, everybody has a budget. Everyone has limitations. I mean, if I had tons and tons of money to just, move and throw it all at the house and do all of that, great. But like, there's definitely something to be said for living in it, figuring out what you really want. I encourage my clients to do that when they can, really. I think it makes a big difference to how you, in the end, change the floor plan, change the flow. Also, I think it allows you, if you have the time. So when we tend to design this way for clients, right, you put the dream on paper first. Our first rendition of what we were going to do was really pretty grandiose and likely not affordable. And that's okay, because I think when you do that, you see what all the big ideas are, and then you kind of pare back versus starting like small and afraid and not dreaming of like what could really be. And I actually feel like most times you get to like the right place, because I don't even think I like the grandiose plan any better than the one I ended up with.
Interesting.
And
I love that.
The one that I have now is really great. And like, I had to make some compromises along the way, but I think, everyone does usually. You can't kind of always get everything. And so, I've been trying to, just use that mantra that like it's going to be, great in the end, and it's something that takes time. And I mean, sometimes people are doing houses over multiple years, and we work with people who are able to do everything at once. And then we do work with clients who, are doing things in phases. And so, you just kind of have to hold true to the vision and try to be patient.
Finish training for the day? Time to fight post-workout fatigue with Core Power Protein Shakes. They're packed with 26 grams of high-quality protein to build muscle and electrolytes to help hydrate. The nutrition you need to help your body replenish, rebuild, and repair post-workout so you can power on to the next one. Champion your recovery with Core Power. Visit corepower.com to learn more.
I love that suggestion about just getting like your wildest dream out onto paper and then kind of either scaling back or revising or, editing down. Wow,
like
that's smart.
An exact example of that is, for instance, the kitchen in this house is sort of like a big galley kitchen, but it's kind of like a straight shot. And my initial idea was and there's like an adjoining what they called like library, but basically feels like just kind of a wasted room. And so the initial plan was to take down that wall in between and rotate the kitchen to be like a big rectangle instead of kind of a galley kitchen. And so from going from this way to kind of this way, and this big kitchen with a big island in the middle and like a big eat-in breakfast room. But that big wall was a big structural wall. And it wasn't even so much the cost of taking down that wall, but just like how invasive to the whole project kind of that was going to be. And we were going to have to add 2 steel beams, and just like, it was feeling like, why am I doing all this? Because sort of the general consensus would be like, have a bigger kitchen with a bigger island.
Yeah.
And I don't even really cook that much. A. B, I didn't really want this giant kitchen. I felt like it wasn't going to be kind of like cozy, or maybe it wasn't going to feel super fitting to the house and so like kind of going through that whole process, now I feel like I'm much happier. I have like the beautiful galley kitchen I want. And then we turned that room into like an adjacent breakfast room that's going to have a beautiful breakfast bar and a pantry. And like, I almost get 2 different rooms to design instead of this kind of one big room.
Yeah.
And it took a while to figure out that that's what I wanted. So that's like kind of an example.
Yeah. But I also love that it wasn't just that it was going to be invasive, but that like you kind of sat with it and thought, is this really what I want? Or is this what like Pinterest is telling me that I want? That is such a good note, because I do think that there's always so much talk about resale value and, is someone going to buy this? Or that I think it can be easy to take yourself out of the equation and almost do what you think needs to be done versus what is really functional for you and what's best for the house. So that is a great reminder.
Yeah, our clients struggle with that a lot, for sure.
Yeah.
I do a lot of talking people off the don't do this for resale, do it for yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
Did anything at the same time, I know you have 2 kids and they're growing, and has your perspective changed also on any of their spaces? Just knowing that you're starting right now with babies, and then, they won't be once the house is finished.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll still be pretty young and it won't go that long.
Fair.
Definitely, the house had a really weird Jack and Jill bathroom. And actually my husband was really he's like, if there's any way, it's a tricky space though. It was going to be really tough to kind of carve 2 bathrooms out of the Jack and Jill, but I think we were able to make it happen. And there was a lot of back and forth between like, should we do it? Should we not do it? You know, I think ultimately the 2 bathrooms is better for multiple reasons, including I have a boy and a girl. So like they'll have their own bathrooms, better for resale, you know, and while both the bathrooms will be kind of smaller, I think it just made more sense in the plan. And it is more expensive. But again, that's like one of those things that felt like, okay, that's worth the spend because there's enough reasons that it makes sense.
So you split them to where they both have an ensuite and they aren't
technically
connected?
My daughter has an ensuite and my son will have his own bathroom, but he accesses it through the hall. Okay. So it's technically it's a little bit of a strange Jack and Jill. It's connected to one bedroom and then it's not connected to the other, but it's sort of like there are 2 bathrooms if you kind of enter from either side. So we were able to reconfigure where one bathroom will just be accessible from the hallway and that'll be my son's bathroom and then my daughter will have an ensuite.
Yeah. I do feel like sometimes those Jack and Jill ones can be a little bit inefficient because you've got to have 2 doors, right? So like with the clearance of the doors, it can be kind of hard, but to your point, it's not quite enough for 2 always. So
yeah, we were able to kind of squeeze some space out of the hall, which was kind of the key part of it. And yeah, I mean, all the bathrooms in this home, I cannot wait to demo. Like, I want to be in there with a hammer. They are so old and bad and like.
Describe the worst one.
I mean, I think if people go to the blog, they can definitely see that. But just so old. You know, like, I think it was one of those, it feels like they got like a special on tile where like everything is yellow or brown. And I mean,
but they're not, are they original?
Beige? No, I don't know. They're definitely not original. They're like bad. I don't even know when they're from. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, it's so hard to even tell the era of when some of this stuff was done because I do think, you know, it's been through multiple owners and it's not one of those like gems where you walk in and had one owner and like they didn't touch anything kind of. So I can't even tell you. I mean, they look like they're from the 70s, but like, who knows? It could be the 90s. I don't know, honestly.
Okay, so there's kitchen, bathroom, obviously were top priorities. What else were the top priorities in the renovation?
So for us and for a lot of what I do for my clients is natural light. I think natural light is, you know, one of the most kind of underutilized design tools, right? Everybody typically wants to be in a space with natural light. It feels more beautiful. Your colors can look more beautiful. I feel happier. People in Chicago get seasonal depression. I feel like it's, you know, cold. And so we changed up a lot of the windows. And I really had this dream of kind of these, you know, so Mediterraneans often have arches. And so our entryway is a beautiful arch detail. And in the foyer, I'm going to change both it's kind of a center entrance where you have your dining room and your living room. I'm going to change those openings to be beautiful arches. And so on the back family room, we are doing 3 sets of beautiful arched French doors to the backyard. So that was sort of like the big sort of dream moment. And then several windows throughout the house are changing or being updated. Particularly in the kitchen, we are making one really large window and kind of getting rid of 2 smaller. So those are, I think, some of the bigger kind of changes that I'm excited for.
Mm-hmm. What about like systems or, you know, were there any like some of those renovation must-do? Yeah, the boring stuff where you're like, I don't want to spend money on this, but I must.
Yes, you're spending a lot of money on the HVAC system. So one of the main updates this house needed, which we knew when we purchased it, was all new heat and air conditioning. So that's one of the like largest line items, honestly. And at one point, everything was updated to have, old radiators, right? Like the big wall radiators that everybody kind of knows what those look like. At some point when the house was renovated, then they moved to baseboard radiators, which, they're not terrible, but like when they're kind of all over your house, I really don't like it. It takes away from all of the baseboard molding and so we're taking all of those out and, doing kind of a more traditional forced air system.
Mm-hmm.
And really, we're updating tons of plumbing, tons of electrical. I would say a majority of what we're spending money on is behind the walls.
Yeah.
But that's really what you need to do when you buy these old homes. And that's why you typically, get a great deal, because people don't want to take the walls apart and put that stuff back together.
Sure. What is like your vision for the, the style, the decor?
Well, I think it's a balance of, so because I do love to remain, somewhat true to the home, I certainly want some Mediterranean aesthetic, which is often, I think people think of Greece or the south of France, white and blue and woods and natural.
Mm-hmm.
And so while there's one part of me that like loves and really appreciates that simplicity, I think if you look at our portfolio, right, we tend to mix a little bit more color and pattern. Sometimes I think we're, a bit more European in terms of like a little bit of like a British eclectic sort of mix. So I'm having a bit of a struggle of like how to meld those styles.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I think it's often about kind of like pulling back and just really, again, like looking at sort of the shell without any of the furnishings. Like, how do I really want the shell to feel? And I think the shell will feel more Mediterranean. And then I'll start to layer in colors and patterns that sort of feel appropriate to me, which I would say if you can picture, the south of France or Provence, or I tend to really love just like romantic, more pale. That's
Mm-hmm.
like what this house is feeling like to me. Nothing too bold. I like kind of calming spaces for myself personally, because I'm always kind of all over the place, and I like my house to be as kind of centering as possible.
Have you basically mapped out the fabrics and pieces you're going to use in every room, or are you kind of letting that evolve once you get through the renovation?
I definitely have like picked up a lot of pieces along the way. I have a vision for a lot of the rooms. So the kitchen and like the laundry mudroom, which is actually quite a large space, those are both fully kind of designed and figured out.
Mm-hmm.
I've purchased some art, so I often lead a lot with art. I have some really beautiful art that I'm pretty passionate about, that I like have a sense of where it's going. I have a wallpaper collection with a French company, and so I will likely put a few of my wallpapers in the house, but like I change my mind every week on what is going where. So I think until like I really have to nail it down, I probably won't. I'll probably just kind of keep letting it evolve.
Yeah. Was there anything, this kind of goes back to what Taryn was asking, but was there anything that you maybe had as a vision, and you did talk about your kitchen, but anything that you changed while you've lived there, like maybe you thought was what you needed in terms of the layout or the flow, and then as you've lived there, you've changed your mind? I know you mentioned at the beginning that you advise your clients to do that. So I was curious what sort of things.
There's a lot of little things. Like we're talking about just like the way that a closet is used, or like the mudroom laundry room, I've had like several different iterations of what those could be or how those things would function, like where a drop zone is or where one isn't. I think those all like in of themselves are pretty small, but like when you start to add them all up, I think it's quite important to the overall project. And I think until you really like see how you function in a space, it can be hard to guess how you would want those things. I mean, I think that's what people can also trust a designer and architect to help them figure out if they're not going to live in a space for a period of time. But it's definitely informed. Again, I think some of my initial like grand ideas didn't really take into consideration like, where is the drop zone where all the mail gathers that, you know, my husband will create in the kitchen if I don't define one. So those kinds of things are just kind of easy to forget about, but really can be, you know, important as you're moving through it. Upstairs there's a fourth bedroom, but technically it doesn't have a closet. So, I mean, maybe it could have been like billed as a nursery or something. And we could move the entrance to our room to connect to that so that we'd almost have this like lounge off of our bedroom, which would be lovely. And then if I moved the door, it would allow me to center my bed on the fireplace in my room, because it kind of drives me crazy that the bed is off center from the fireplace. But it's like, is that good for resale? Like all of those questions, again, that like people ask themselves, or like, do we need a bigger room? But like, if we're living here forever, then who cares if that's a fourth bedroom or whatever. So like those kind of things, I just think you have longer to sort of debate, which I don't know if is, you know, good or bad, but those are the kind of things we're going back and forth on.
Yeah, you
like,
don't have to make like a
walk-in closet like that currently you kind of enter on a side, but I'd love to make a center entrance. Like these are the things that I'm thinking about, you know.
Okay, so I did go on your blog because I had to see, I needed to see these before photos of these bathrooms. So I was like diving deep in here. And yeah, they're bad. So I see why you're really pumped.
Yeah.
But yeah, I recommend people going to look at this because this is fun. But
yeah, there's a whole tour, I think, right?
Yeah, there's a whole tour. Yeah, there's a whole tour. So this laundry room that you speak of that has a skylight in it is huge. It looks huge.
Massive. Yes.
So what are you planning to do in there?
So that's going to be my flower arranging room.
Ah, yes. Yes.
So
amazing.
No, it's going to be, it will hopefully be amazing. So it's going to be part mudroom, part laundry room / flower arranging room, or the room with all of my pretty things like stored in there. So I do get a lot of joy. Like if I didn't do this, I would like probably do flowers for a living.
I love it.
And then there's a bathroom in there as well. So we're turning that into like a little spa bathroom moment with a steam shower and yeah, and it's all going to be kind of in the same cabinetry color, so it will feel somewhat cohesive. And originally I built a whole wall with sliding doors because I was like, okay, I don't want to see the laundry room. I'm just going to kind of like close it. But that was expensive, and then also kind of made this like very long hallway of a mudroom. So in the end, I decided to kind of we're gonna frame it out, and you'll have like a big opening, so it'll still kind of feel like two different spaces. But we designed the laundry area to look really beautiful and tried to hide the laundry machines behind doors, because my biggest issue with that space, it's like that's where we walk in right from the garage. That's what I see all the time, and right now it's a disastrous dumping zone, and I don't want to walk in and just like see laundry every day. That's just not the aesthetic. My life is about aesthetics. And like, if I'm going to have my way, it's not going to be to walk into a messy laundry room. So yeah, we're trying to make that really pretty.
Yeah, if you see it online, it looks like it has a big skylight, and then it's a big white box, like a very large box with floating washer and dryer currently.
Yeah,
That's
and
what it
there's
feels
a
like.
whole sort of like other side.
Yeah,
too.
fair enough. But I love that you're making it into a little like, how can I make this a retreat? Like, I'm coming in, I'm done with my day, shuffling kids in and out. How do I make this wonderful for me and my family? But, I think that's just a beautiful way, again, to focus on your own home and remind people too.
Everyone pays attention to the entry for their guests, right? But many of us neglect the entry that we use. But it's a space you're walking into multiple times a day. I was thinking about this recently. And you want to come home and feel relaxed and peaceful and happy. And you're not going to do that if you're coming into a junky, discombobulated mess. Not saying that yours is. I'm really more talking about myself here. So if you can put some effort into making it, tidy and beautiful, or just tidy, that I always think that goes a long way for your mental health, because you're not always using your own front door.
No one should have to choose between their own safety and their pets. But nearly half of domestic abuse survivors delay leaving because they can't bring their pets with them. Purina is helping to create more pet-friendly domestic violence shelters through the Purple Leash Project, so survivors and their pets can escape and heal together. Visit Purina.com/purple to learn more.
What are, I think there's sort of tidy, and then there's also, beautiful. And so it's like I went the extra mile to pick out a really beautiful sink and a really beautiful faucet. And, we're going to add some beadboard or like some wall treatment. It's just like anything that I think you can do to kind of dress up those spaces and give them some beauty beyond, drywall and cabinetry. It really adds to the ambiance of it feeling like a room and not just like a utility area.
Yeah. Talk to us some more about color, because I do love your color palettes. There's a lot of warmth in them, which I think is so pretty, and like an earthiness to it. How are you thinking about color? You mentioned art was something that really impacts the design. Is that where the color palette is coming from?
I wouldn't say it always comes from there. I think my team tends to talk about it like we like muddy colors is something we often say. So we tend to use colors that are sort of like, if they're saturated, they're usually kind of muddy. I don't know a better word, but it's like they're not super intense. And they're not super bright. Like, I definitely struggle whenever having to use bright colors. Like, we did the House Beautiful show house, and that was like the one time I was like, okay, it's a show house. I'm going to paint it bright yellow and just like see if we like it. Which we did, but like that would be much more rare for us to do. I think that just comes from my aesthetic and kind of what I'm drawn to. I don't love preppy, like I feel like, so it sometimes I think the colors we use are like a little less what I'd call like preppy colors, and they're maybe like a little more moody or like a little more, it's the word I'm looking for, sort of like not indifferent, but like if you were gonna like name the color, I feel
nuanced.
Like a certain pink would be like a happy pink, and another pink would be like, yes, nuanced, whatever. I'm
nuanced, earthy, enigmatic.
Yeah. Look at you, Caroline. Just
Human Dictionary. No. Well, I found I also love a muddy color because they feel a little bit more ambiguous, and they can sort of change as your room changes. So, it's like if you pick a bright blue, it's always going to be bright blue. Whereas if you pick sort of a blue gray, it can kind of read more blue in some spaces, more gray in some spaces. And that is sort of nice, I always think too. So I was really drawn to your color palettes, and you use a lot of, or not, maybe not a lot, but you seem to use like shades of red or like red brown, which I really found beautiful. especially because I do think that's a color people are a little less likely to use in this time where blue is sort of the,
yeah,
neutral.
I will say a majority of our clients really do like love blue and green, and that's what we hear over and over and over again. But I think a lot of people, especially people who are drawn to us as a firm, they're really open to color and they're excited to experiment. And so really, I mean, I don't have a personal love for red or whatever. I mean, I do like it more than I used to. I also think there's just something about kind of what's happening in decor now and like all these warmer colors that people are kind of embracing more than the cool colors. So I think we're sort of like at that point in the pendulum where it's not just blue and green, and people like we're doing a lot of burgundy. There was like just like all this like salmon and more corals and this kind of warmer types of pinks that I think are really being embraced. And obviously like yellow's made such a huge comeback. So I don't know. I don't know if it's, just kind of the time or it's just experimenting with colors we like in that sort of muted, muddier palette. But
well, it's sort of, they're like fall colors.
I would say even like historic,
Yeah, there you go.
That's, what I do, just like tip for anyone listening, like one of my favorite paint decks is the Benjamin Moore Williamsburg collection deck.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Is such a good deck and we use it a lot. So I love like a limited deck. Obviously we love Farrow and Ball, like all designers do, but
that goes back to a limited deck in a way, right?
Exactly,
like that one too. Yeah, you're kind of like
we love a limited deck. I would say the majority of paint colors you see from us are Farrow and Ball or Ben Moore historical collection.
Yeah. I know, but then there are definitely times where you can't get the right one and you're like, I need more options. You mentioned the sort of tweaks to the bathroom and kind of reworking that situation. But I was curious about more of the furnishings and the elements that are going to come after the renovation and how you're thinking through that with young kids.
Yeah, I mean, I am a big proponent of having nice things, even though you have kids. And I mean, honestly, always had wallpaper, always had, I think beautiful mohair covered chairs, etc. Like, I feel like I never worried about my kids like coloring on stuff. I don't know, that didn't happen. I think it's like, I don't know if it is a value and it's like taken care of and like, I don't know, just then that sort of translates, I think, to
Are you bragging that your kids are wonderful?
Yeah, they're perfect. I think that's perfect children.
I'm like, I don't know how to say this in the mouth. I don't know.
How do I not brag that mine are better than yours? I'm kidding. I'm joking.
Other issues, but it's not on wallpaper.
They respect the wallpaper. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, they really do. I think it's hilarious. I mean,
that's great.
They both completely understand that their mother is a designer and like what that means.
Yeah.
And, I think again, like, yeah, I think that's probably different when you're not a designer and it's not like your day to day and they don't see all of these things kind of coming and going. But I really don't, honestly, what I would say is I don't think about design any differently with kids than not kids. And I mean, the clients that we design for, who I would say 9 out of 10 of our clients are pregnant at all times. It's like,
that's a lot. 9 out of 10?
We work with a lot of younger families, like I would say, who are buying sort of their forever home or buying a beautiful second home that now they're ready to invest in and renovate. And so we pay attention to performance fabrics. These days, performance fabrics are amazing and everywhere, and it's not hard to find them. We like natural, durable things like wool rugs and runners and, can be sometimes cognizant to paint finish and just like making sure key areas are somewhat wipeable. Like we're not going to have a kitchen where you can't wipe your walls down or a bathroom where you can't wipe your walls down. But in general, I really don't approach design too differently unless it's like, you know, a kid's bedroom and we need to specifically incorporate something that is kid related. But I'm always trying to design a space that's going to grow with the kids and that's not going to feel like childish. So, you know, both of my kids' rooms are, you know, I try to give them a say. Another tip is like, I've let them decide what color their closet is going to be. And like, I've even told my little boy he can wallpaper his closet with dinosaur paper because he keeps going, Mom, what wallpaper is going in my room? And his room is not going to be wallpapered. Like I might do something, but there's plenty of other wallpaper in the house. I'm like, I don't need a wallpaper every single room. So if you can kind of like please them in some way and give them some control, I do think that's important, but I don't let them decide what they want in their rooms fully.
All right. Well, she perfectly teed up your wallpaper question, Taryn. So you go with that.
I didn't even think of that.
That was so good. And you reminded me too. I let my son have some poster from some book he purchased, and he like pulled it out of the back. And he's 7, and he was like, "Oh, can I hang this on the wall?" And I was like, in my head, I was like, "Absolutely not." And then I was like, your closet, there's a whole wall in there. Go nuts. And so I gave him some I gave him painter's tape. I was like, I need to get a bulletin board or something in here. But for now, it's up with some painter's tape, and he's happy as a clam. And I'm like, cool, me too. So small wins. But on wallpaper, you have spent a good solid, year and a half developing beautiful wallpaper. Will you tell us all about your collection and inspiration?
Yeah, people can see a little bit of it here. This is actually it in my studio.
So
it's on the walls. This is one of the murals.
Beautiful. Yeah.
But yes, I mean, long story short, I some of the design classes I took at the Art Institute, I met a woman who was French and we became friendly and stayed connected on Instagram. She moved to Atlanta. Shout out to Emily. And then she approached me like several years later, and she was consulting for a French brand who she had purchased a bunch of wallpaper from. And they were trying to sort of expand in the US market, work with US designers. I used their wallpaper in a show house. And so if you're on our portfolio, there's a room that kind of has a mural of Paris. And I think it might say like Lake Forest dressing room or something. And that was one of their already developed patterns, but they were so incredible to work with. And what was interesting about the process was, I mean, there's so many things. First of all, you know, everyone knows the big names like de Gournay and Gracie and those amazing custom papers. And, you know, we're lucky enough to use those in some of our projects, but that's not our, you know, everyday client. And so I would say what I really loved is that this brand was sort of reviving the mural. But what was different about the European market is that people really were only wallpapering one wall. And so these murals were really developed to be just like one scene instead of immersive and kind of like. And so
how wide is that, like in general, how wide was that? Like if they were just doing one wall?
Like, you know, I don't know, like a big wall in your condo or like a headboard wall in your bedroom.
Okay.
Kind of similar to like, you know, I just think in the US, it's much more like people like wallpaper a whole room. It's more normal. And so with the mural of Paris, I asked them if they could like add an Eiffel Tower, like could they help me create some scenes so like we weren't using the same mural on 4 walls, you know, like we needed to make it feel like you were in a scene and it was changing. And so we sort of developed that together. It went great. And then from there, we talked about working on a collection, which started with like, oh, okay, we'll do 3 papers, and ended up like, I don't even know how many there are. I think there's like 20 or more. If you know, count the different colorways. And I was able to work with different artists. I got to choose the artists who worked on the paper, and then I did the creative direction. And I mean, there's so many different ideas in the papers, but everything from, I was really inspired by trellis and just saw this like huge comeback that I felt like trellis was having. And we had just done the House Beautiful show house, which was a historic old home that at one point had been renovated by David Adler. And so I wanted to do some trellis paper, and then I wanted to have this like kind of forgotten garden mural. And it all just sort of started to feel very Mediterranean, which the funny thing is this was before I bought my house, which is a Mediterranean.
Okay. I was wondering.
Like, maybe I'm just meant to be in the Mediterranean. But true, like, obviously I love that. I do have very beautiful memories of like being in Provence and Positano and stuff when I was in my young 20s. So I don't know, maybe it all stems from that. But
amazing. They're beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I could go on and on about the paper. What I will say for people listening is it's direct to consumer. You do not have to order through a designer. It's all available online, and it's really, I think, reasonable price points for beautiful wallpaper and product. And what I think is incredible is they can customize. So some of the papers in my collection are just rolls that you buy, but some can be completely customized to your architecture. And so that's really different for any like direct to consumer wallpaper.
I thought that was, your trellis, your bespoke trellis one. You have like pieces. I was wondering how you did that, because you have some over the transoms that were trellis, and I was like, I don't understand how you're.
Yeah,
but now I can see. Yeah,
it's all like fitted to your room, just like a custom paper would be.
That's really neat. Very neat.
Very cool. Yeah. Is it peel and stick, or is it like pastable?
No, it's all paste. Okay. Yeah, they have what I would call sort of like regular wipeable, like more like what people would think of as wallpaper. They also have like commercial grade where they can print, I think, on more of like a vinyl if for commercial application. But it's a really great substrate. I really like it. Most of the installers I've talked to have said it's really nice to install. It's kind of like thicker than you would think. Mm-hmm. And I know it's also interesting, the company is like quite big on sustainability. And so I think what they print on is like good for the environment. Like it's a good type of paper that like doesn't have chemicals in it and like all that kind of good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool.
Cool.
I love the patterns, and how funny to have a Mediterranean theme.
I know.
It's like you're designing it for your own house and you didn't even know.
All meant to be. And I think we're even I'm meeting with the owner again on Wednesday because I have another idea that I really want to put in my bathroom. And I happen to be designing. Do you guys know what K-Biz is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like so the kitchen and bath show?
Yes, the kitchen and bath show. So I'm working with the cabinet company to help them design one of their booths. And I also think this paper could be really cool in their booth. So we will see if I add another one to the list.
Amazing.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, thank you so much for chatting with us. This was a delight, and I really enjoyed getting to delve into your portfolio and hear about your house. We'll be following you on Instagram to see how the renovation
goes.
Stock your home.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity, and I'm excited to see what Ballard has going on these days. So I need to... You guys will have to give me some updates on what's new.
We've been inspired too by a lot of trellis, so stay tuned too. We got some good pieces coming out with it.
We
Not
also
wallpaper,
have a lot of like earthier. Our fall collection has a lot of those sort of earthier palettes. A little bit of red, lots of chocolate browns, some more more nuanced greens and blues.
I'm going to start using that in every presentation.
It's
so nuanced.
There's, you know what, that you were talking about, like burgundies and salmons and corals, like mauve-y kind of colors. And we have a little bit of that in there as well. So Yeah, we've all been sort of vibing on that same earthy palette.
Are you guys, do you guys have a presence at High Point?
No.
Yeah. We do have
we attend.
Yes. You might run into Taryn there.
Yeah. Yes, I'll be there. That'd be great.
We do have a store in Oak Brook. So there's a store in Oak Brook, but we're based in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay. Yeah, I knew you guys were based there. How long has the Oak Brook store been in the area?
Couple years, 5 years, maybe.
Couple years. Okay, but it's relatively new.
Yeah,
it's like Oak Brook's it's a huge shopping area. It's like, unfortunately, not the most convenient for me, but
we just finished fall floor set, so you might be
Okay,
we might be worth it. Our national location, which is online.
Oh, I was like, where are you going with this?
I mean, I look online all the time, but it is good to remember that you guys have that physical location.
Yeah, people like to go and touch and make sure the quality's there, and
big swatches, so you can kind of get a feel for the, and I will say our designers in the store are really helpful for trade, so that if you have a product question or something, they love to help. They love to work with designers.
Awesome.
And for listeners, your storefront is adorable. Both of your storefronts, and you have quite a few pictures on your social media. So hopefully,
yes, we're going to be open. If you happen to be in the Chicagoland area, I'm going to do where I am right now in Glencoe. We'll be open for 6 weeks at the holidays. So we're usually just open by appointment, or we really just have client meetings here, but I did the big local sidewalk sale and it was such a success. I was like, I got to open up for the holidays. So
yeah.
I'm going to try to figure that out next week.
With your free time.
Yeah.
Well, when you tell everyone where they can find you and follow you and see your work.
Yeah. So you can follow us on Instagram at Centered by Design. That is definitely our most active social media, but we do a lot of Pinterest. And we have a great newsletter we send out once a month, but it's a nice way to stay in touch and kind of know what things are happening, if a wallpaper is being released, or, if the store is open. And centeredbydesign.com. We also do consultations with TALD, which is TALD.co. So if you are far away and just kind of need a consultation, that's a great way to sort of engage with a designer. And I also do career sessions there because I have a lot of designers, emailing about how to get started in the industry, et cetera. And you can book a session to get advice there as well.
Very cool.
That's great.
Love that.
That's really great.
Yeah.
All right. That's our show. And that's our show. You can find all of the show notes on our blog, howtodecorate.com/podcast.
To send in a decorating dilemma, email your questions to podcast@ballarddesigns.net so we can help you with your space.
And of course, be sure to follow us on social media at Ballard Designs.
Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. And please leave us a review. We'd love to hear your feedback.
Until next time, happy
decorating.